Hey, it's Darren for the interview. Great to finally connect there.
Absolutely. Thank you for the interview. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Where am I getting you from at the moment?
Well, I'm on an undisclosed island in South Texas.
All righty. How long have you lived in or around that undisclosed island in South Texas?
Well, not too long.
You have all the supplies you need out there?
Yeah, I do. I normally live up in Fort Worth and that area, Salina, Texas. And, with everything going on with the virus, I bugged out of there about a month and a half ago.
Got it. Well, as an outlaw country kind of artist, it does make sense that you wouldn't be flocking towards where everyone else is.
Yeah, there's about 3 people on this whole island right now.
Being a little cut off like that, how are you passing your time at the moment besides, taking the time to do an interview with me?
Well, I'm building. I'm working on my place down here. There's always a lot of work to do. And my pen works really good down here. So, I've been writing a few things, a few songs.
Now, when you know that you have to kind of go a little remote like that, how much musical equipment do you bring? Anything besides a guitar?
Well, I've got a little, digital recorder because songs, when song premises show up, they're given to you really in the perfect form, and we just get in our own way. So it really helps if you can get it down just like it's given to you. So I usually bring a little digital recorder with me, and I've got a gut string guitar down here too.
Are all the releases that you had planned before this pandemic happening, are all of them still going ahead? For example, At the Crossroads, is that still coming out in June?
Well, that'll be interesting to see if we hit our deadline on that because we still have a photo shoot to do, and the shoot is it was delayed because the place where we're shooting is literally closed down by government order. So it's probably it might push us back because I have to, once, we get everything shot, we still have the artwork to work on, and there's plenty of graphic artists that can work on it from home, but I can't even get the material to them because I don't have the photo shoot done.
Oh.
So, they better hurry because I'm getting uglier every day.
We all know that is not the case here. And Inevitable, that's the latest single, I believe, to chart really high. Did you know that you had a winner on your hands when you recorded it?
I liked the song, and I thought we had a really good cut on it. I was kind of heading in the Tom Petty direction on that song. It's kind of a tribute to Tom Petty. He was just an amazing artist. I still think he hasn't gotten his due, for what he did. So anyway, to answer your question, they're kind of like children. You bring them up and raise them and hope that they go off in the right direction and do something. So, but I had no idea that we would bust into the Billboard top 25. That's asking a whole lot for an independent artist, that doesn't have those doors swung open to them.
Well, that brings me to generally being curious about you, because everything by design that you're doing has been on your own terms. And usually, aside from the term outlaw country, that kind of behavior or ideology is more associated with punk rock. Were you always primarily a country guy? Because you just mentioned Tom Petty's influence, and he did have some roots to him, but were all your initial influences country?
Well, I like 70s rock and roll. I listened to Steve Miller Band. But, as an artist, when I started listening to music and cutting my teeth and learning how to play, I was listening to the really old stuff like Hank Sr. and Jimmy Rogers and, those guys, Lefty Frizzell. And because I wanted to go back and see some of my heroes like Waylon Jennings and Merle Haggard. Merle's biggest influence was Lefty Frizzell, So I wanted to go back and listen to the guys who my heroes listened to, but along the way you have other things to influence you. I listen to all different sorts of music, and my parents were big Neil Diamond fans, so I listened to a lot of Neil Diamond growing up, and because they were my parents, I learned how to pick a lot of Neil Diamond songs so I could play them for him. So some of his finger picking techniques rubbed off on me, Yeah, a lot of different influences, really.
You don't usually hear people talk about Neil Diamond influencing them as a guitar player, but of course, he did do an acoustic record. Was it Four Penny Opera or something like that about a decade ago, which was guitar based? Was that the one he did with Rick Rubin?
Yeah, yeah, and Rick Rubin's great too, man. He had his hands on a lot of nice works, like the Johnny Cash's last body of work, which I think was one of his best bodies of work. When the Man Comes Around, wow, what a song.
Yeah. So looking at your credits, we just talked a little bit ago about At the Crossroads, which is a duet with Waylon Jennings, who you're talking about. And Billy Joe Shaver is another legend who has embraced you. Who was the first legend that you were able to really meet and not just be a fan of, but also sort of a collaborator?
Oh, that's a good question. I was lucky enough to stumble into a Grand Ole Opry tour when I was working some shows in Phoenix, Arizona, and I had a gig lined out for the State Fair, and I ran into the Grand Ole Opry tour, and I just hit it off with those guys, and they kind of took me under their wing, and we went to eat every day and hung out every day for about 3 weeks, and got to go, golfing with Jack Pearson and the Everly Brothers. I did a show with Don and Phil, and got to open up for them, and just run around with those guys. So that was pretty neat because they didn't treat me like a fan. They just treated me like one of them, and of course I've always gravitated to people 3 times my age or so that had wisdom to share, and I like to hang around with those mentors because you learn so much more than hanging around with people your own age. So, Hank Cochran was a big one. I got hired, and Nashville's all about paying your dues, man. So I was out there doing, I had a chain of franchises out west, and I had a whole bunch of employees working for me. In the meantime, I'm out in Nashville running fence and doing odd jobs that these guys asked me to do that were in this outlaw songwriting circle. And one day I got a call to go out in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and help frame out a studio. And I was getting ready to go over to a guy named Bernie Elson's house to write. And I got a call from Richie Albright, Waylon's drummer, and he said, "Hey, drop what you're doing, go by the barn, pick up your tools, and head out to Hendersonville, and I'll get you an address. I'll call you back. Just head that way." I'm like, "Well, what about my writing?" And he said, "No, I've already handled that. You just go to Hendersonville." So I went, by grumbling, I went back to the barn, grabbed up my skill saw and all my tools, and headed out. I had this little 57 Chevy pickup, and it's a long way from Leapers Fork, Tennessee, to Hendersonville on a 57 Chevy pickup. It takes you dang near 2 hours to get there. And so I got up there, and started framing out the studio with this fella. And it turns out that he ran sound for Waylon, that guy I was framing out the studio with. That's not how I ended up meeting Waylon. But we worked on that studio together, and I had no idea where I was. No earthly idea. And the Lord just put me right down at, one of the masters of the pen, one of probably the 4 or 5 greatest songwriters that ever hit Tennessee, Hank Cochran. Make the World Go Away, I Fall to Pieces, The Chair, Oceanfront Property, and so many more wonderful songs. And one day I was in there cooking. I was really craving home, and I was cooking New Mexico red chili enchiladas in the oven. And I made them from scratch. My mom taught me how to do that. And all of a sudden, this old man came sniffing his way out into the kitchen, Country Music's kitchen. And he said, "That smells exactly like it did when I was working in the oil fields in New Mexico." I looked up, and there's an old man there in his pajamas with a big old long beard, and he used to play with his fingernails. He'd click them in between each other. That was one of his things. And I said, "Well, would you like to join me?" And he said, "I would love to. Let me get dressed." And he went back to the bedroom, which is a big house, and he disappeared into the house. And I thought, well, that's a cute guy. And I had no idea who he was. And I just knew I was in his kitchen. And so he came in, and we ate New Mexico enchiladas. And at the end of the dinner, he said, "Would you like to hear my gospel album?" And I said, "I'd love to." So I went past the barrier of the kitchen, which I wasn't allowed to go. They told me, "Don't go past the kitchen." So I stepped into the next room, which was the family room, and it was just every inch of the wall was full of gold and platinum records. And then there were stacks of them all over the floor because there was no place to put them all. And the next room I passed, same thing. And so I was looking on the walls, desperately trying to see whose house I was in. And my eyes are so big, and I saw I Fall to Pieces, and I thought, "God, this isn't Harlan Howard." And then I saw The Chair, and I'm like, "The Chair? Well, this isn't Dean Dillon." I couldn't remember who else wrote The Chair. And then I saw Make the World Go Away, and it was Elvis's cut, and a big old, huge, multi-platinum framed up deal from Elvis. And I thought, "Oh my God, I'm following Hank Cochran down the hall." And we got back there in the other end of the house, and he played me his gospel album, and he handed me his Martin guitar, his gut string that he wrote all those songs on, and asked me to play him something. I played him a song called "Who Am I?" And he said, "That song is a hit." And I didn't, I took for granted what he was telling me because, and then I remember 2 months later, I was frustrated, and I'd written a song and I played it for him, and he really didn't react to it. And I said, "Well, Hank, man, I've been working with you for 2 months. Haven't anything I've written you, done anything for you?" And he said, "I told you the day I met you, Who Am I is a hit." So anyway, I got to work with him for years. I lived in his house for about a year and a half, and then I moved in with another one of his cohorts named Red Lane, who became a really big mentor to me. Red wrote Miss Emily's Picture and Make the World Go Away. Miss Emily's Picture and New Looks from an Old Lover Again. And The Eagle, he wrote that with Hank for Waylon Jennings.
So it sounds like your whole life changed just because of enchiladas.
Yeah, well, I think it was the lightning strike that changed my life. I was headed to law school, and the Lord had another idea to knock me back on course. And so I've made a deal with him since then that if he keeps drawing the line, I'll keep walking it. And every once in a while, you get off on your own will. You meet a girl or something, and you head off in the wrong direction, and then things dry up. And so go back to the real world and doing work and making some coins so you can do what you do. And then inevitably I end up falling right back on the same track again and finding my way back to music. So we're in one of those deals right now. I mean, about a year ago, I had a gentleman out of Dallas, Texas who really believed in me, and he helped me put an album together, and we formed a little label called Outlaw Country Records. And we've only been up and running less than a year, and we've already had 2 Billboard Top 30 hits.
You before talked about how being a historian within music kind of also led you to befriending a lot of the most influential people ever. Are there other facets of your life where you aim to know everything you can and you know a lot of the greats? Are you this way with film or comedy or sports?
Probably not. Probably it's just been a music thing for me. I mean, there's been mentors in my life, learning how to do things, in the real world. Like I learned how to use to run big excavators, big Hitachis, and anywhere from the kind of excavators you could drive your Jeep up in the bucket of and lift up and take your Jeep to the job site. So, little Cat 325s, the big track hose. And, I had some mentors there, ran into some guys that were retired and ran the power company, and I'd hire them as my superintendent on the job, and they knew everybody and everything about the whole deal. So they were working for me, but what they were really doing is they'd come to work and they'd tell me what to do, then they'd go home and I'd do exactly what they told me to do. And they were my supervisor. So things like that. I've been very fortunate in running across people. I've got a cutting horse trainer named Punk Carter, and he's in the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame. And boy, he really radically changed everything I did on the back of a horse. And then there's an old lesson that says, when the student is ready, the master shall appear. And when I was ready to start learning about training horses, this fellow named Harry Nakoa showed up, a Hawaiian Paniolo cowboy, and I started working with him, training some horses. And next thing I know, I helped him form a 501c3 for pairing PTSD soldiers and special needs kids with horses. And we're working with a huge special needs school right now, and I'm the COO of that deal. And Harry's he's doing really well. And boy, that guy's taught me a whole lot about horses.
Is it true on the sporting end that you own a National Hot Rod Association team?
Yeah, I'm half owner in a little team. It's not like the Harley Davidson team or anything, but we were contenders. We placed, and every once in a while we'll go do a show out there. I did a 23 city tour with the NHRA. That was a lot of fun. What an awesome sport. Those fans really get their money worth out there. They offer just first access to just things that you can't go see in NASCAR. I mean, just the regular fan can walk right up on the pits and, get right up to the racing. And it's pretty awesome what they offer. So, yeah, I've got to do that. That's been a lot of fun.
Are there any sports teams that you're especially behind, or is it more motorsports and horses are it for you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It seems like the big sports have been politicized so much, it's kind of turned me off. I sure do like to go to baseball games. I like to physically be in there. Every once in a while I'll go catch a Texas Rangers game. But I don't really follow it. And, I don't even watch a lot of TV. I just, I'm usually just out there doing my thing, and I don't listen to radio hardly ever because I don't want to be influenced by what's going on today, I do follow the news, but I mostly do it on the internet and just through YouTube and reading news stories.
Makes sense to me. So since you've given me so much to work with, Danny, in closing, any last words for the kids?
Well, time is a train on lightning wheels, so love the ones that you love with all your heart and tell them every day.
Definitely holds up. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really hope the touring and the album and all that get back on track soon, and we can see you live in New York soon.
Well, I would love to go out there and do that. And can I have your permission to let you know when I'm heading out that way to New York?
Anytime, anything I can ever do to help the cause. Anyone who's cool with Lori, I know is good people. So anytime.
Man, Lori's just really a blessing. She's awesome.
Paltrocast.